The University of Paris, metonymically known as the Sorbonne, was a French university, founded circa 1150 in Paris, France. Recognized 1200 by King Philip II and 1215 by Pope Innocent III, as one of the first universities. Reputed for its academic performance, notably in theology and philosophy, it introduced many European academic as well as student traditions, such as student nations. The university is colloquially referred to as the Sorbonne after its collegiate institution, Collège de Sorbonne, founded around 1257 by Robert de Sorbonne. Following the turbulence of the French Revolution, the University of Paris was suspended in 1793 but revived again in 1896. In 1970, following the May revolts, the university was divided into 13 autonomous universities, of which 3 still maintain the name and a major legacy of the former Sorbonne. Origin and early organization. Like other medieval universities, the University of Paris was well established by the time it was formally founded by the Catholic Church in 1200. The earliest historical reference to the university as such is found in Matthew of Paris's reference to the studies of his own teacher and his acceptance into the Fellowship of the Elect Masters at the University of Paris in about 1170. Additionally, it is known that Pope Innocent III had completed his studies at the University of Paris by 1182 at the age of 21. The university developed as a corporation around the Notre Dame Cathedral, similar to other medieval corporations, such as guilds of merchants or artisans. The medieval Latin term, universitas, had the more general meaning of a guild. The University of Paris was known as a Universitas Magistrorum et Scholarium, in contrast with the Bolognese Universitas Scholarium. The university had 4 faculties: arts, medicine, law, and theology. The Faculty of Arts was the lowest in rank, but also the largest, as students had to graduate there in order to be admitted to one of the higher faculties. The students were divided into 4 nations according to language or regional origin: France, Normandy, Picardy, and England. The last came to be known as the Alemannian nation. Recruitment to each nation was wider than the names might imply. The English-German nation included students from Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. The faculty and nation system of the University of Paris became the model for all later medieval universities. Under the governance of the Church, students wore robes and shaved the tops of their heads in tonsure, to signify they were under the protection of the Church. Students followed the rules and laws of the Church and were not subject to the king's laws or courts. This presented problems for the city of Paris, as students ran wild, and its official had to appeal to church courts for justice. Students were often very young, entering the school at age 13 or 14 and staying for 6 to 12 years. Original schools. 3 schools were especially famous in Paris: the Palatino Palace School, the School of Notre Dame, and that of St. Genevieve Abbey. The decline of royalty brought about the decline of the first. The other 2 were ancient but did not have much visibility in the early centuries. The glory of the Palatine school doubtless eclipsed theirs, until it completely gave way to them. These 2 centers were much frequented and many of their masters were esteemed for their learning. The first renowned professor at the School of Sainte Genevieve was Hubold, who lived in the 10th century. Not content with the courses at Liege, he continued his studies at Paris, entered or allied himself with the chapter of Sainte Genevieve, and attracted many pupils via his teaching. Distinguished professors from the School of Notre Dame in the 11th century include Lambert, disciple of Fulbert of Chartres, Drogo of Paris, Manigault of Germany, and Anselm of Laon. These 2 schools attracted scholars from every country and produced many illustrious men, among whom were St. Stanislaus of Katepanomegas, Bishop of Krakow, Gebhard, Archbishop of Salzburg, St. Stephen, 3rd abbot of Citeaux, Robert d'Arbrissel, founder of the Abbey of Fontevraud, etc. Three other men who added prestige to the schools of Notre Dame and Sainte Geneviève were William Champeaux, Abélard, and Peter Lombard. Humanistic instruction comprised grammar, rhetoric, dialectics, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. To the higher instruction belonged dogmatic and moral theology, whose source was the scriptures and the patristic fathers. It was completed by the study of canon law. The school of Saint Victor arose to rival those of Notre Dame and Sainte Geneviève. It was founded by William Champeaux when he withdrew to the Abbey of Saint Victor. Its most famous professors are Hugh of Saint Victor and Richard of Saint Victor. The plan of studies expanded in the schools of Paris, as it did elsewhere. A Bolognese compendium of canon law called the Decretum Gratiana brought about a division of the theology department. Hitherto the discipline of the Church had not been separate from so-called theology. They were studied together under the same professor. But this vast collection necessitated a special course, which was undertaken first at Bologna, where Roman law was taught. In France, first Orléans and then Paris erected chairs of canon law. Before the end of the 12th century, the decretals of Gérard La Pucelle, Mathieu d'Angers, and Anselm of Paris were added to the Decretum Gratiana. However, civil law was not included at Paris. In the 12th century, medicine began to be publicly taught at Paris. The first professor of medicine in Paris records is Hugo, Physicus excellens qui quadrivium docuit. Professors were required to have measurable knowledge and be appointed by the university. Applicants had to be assessed by examination. If successful, the examiner, who was the head of the school, and known as Scholasticus, Capiscal, and Chancellor, appointed an individual to teach. This was called the license or faculty to teach. The license had to be granted freely. No one could teach without it. On the other hand, the examiner could not refuse to award it when the applicant deserved it. The school of Saint Victor, under the abbey, conferred the license in its own right. The school of Notre Dame depended on the diocese. That of Sainte Geneviève on the abbey or chapter. The diocese and the abbey or chapter, through their chancellor, gave professorial investiture in their respective territories where they had jurisdiction. Besides Notre Dame, Sainte Geneviève, and Saint Victor, there were several schools on their island, and on their mount. Whoever, says Crevier, had the right to teach might open a school where he pleased, provided it was not in the vicinity of a principal school. Thus a certain Adam, who was of English origin, kept his, near the Petit Pont. Another Adam, Parisian by birth, taught at the Grand Pont, which is called the Pont au Change. The number of students in the school of the capital grew constantly, so that lodgings were insufficient. French students included princes of the blood, sons of the nobility, and ranking gentry. The courses at Paris were considered so necessary as a completion of studies that many foreigners flocked to them. Pope Celestine II, Adrian IV and Innocent III studied at Paris, and Alexander III sent his nephews there. Noted German and English students included Otto of Freisingen, Cardinal Conrad, Archbishop of Mainz, St. Thomas of Canterbury, and John of Salisbury, while Sainte Geneviève became practically the seminary for Denmark. The chroniclers of the time called Paris the city of letters par excellence, placing it above Athens, Alexandria, Rome, and other cities. At that time, there flourished at Paris philosophy and all branches of learning, and there the 7 arts were studied and held in such esteem as they never were at Athens, Egypt, Rome, or elsewhere in the world. Poets extolled the university in their verses, comparing it to all that was greatest, noblest, and most valuable in the world. As the university developed, it became more institutionalized. First, the professors formed an association, for according to Matthew Paris, John of Celle, 21st abbot of St. Albans, England, was admitted as a member of the teaching corps of Paris after he had followed the courses. The masters, as well as the students, were divided according to national origin. Alban wrote that Henry II, King of England, in his difficulties with St. Thomas of Canterbury, wanted to submit his cause to a tribunal composed of professors of Paris, chosen from various provinces. This was likely the start of the division according to nations, which was later to play an important part in the university. Celestine III ruled that both professors and students had the privilege of being subject only to the ecclesiastical courts, not to civil courts. The three schools, Notre Dame, Saint Genevieve, and Saint Victor, may be regarded as the triple cradle of the Universitas Scholarium, which included masters and students, hence the name university. Henry de Neifel and some others hold that this honor is exclusive to the School of Notre Dame, but the reasons do not seem convincing. He excludes Saint Victor because, at the request of the abbot and the religious of Saint Victor, Gregory IX in 1237 authorized them to resume the interrupted teaching of theology. But the university was largely founded about 1208, as is shown by a bull of Innocent III. Consequently, the schools of St. Victor might well have contributed to its formation. Secondly, de Neifel excludes the schools of Saint Genevieve because there had been no interruption in the teaching of the liberal arts. This is debatable, and through the period, theology was taught. The Chancellor of Saint Genevieve continued to give degrees in arts, something he would have ceased if his abbey had no part in the university organization.